Welcome back to CEEN Caribbean News. It's now time to go in depth. As Jamaica continues to hear bits and pieces of its budget to be presented to cover the island's expenses over the 2016-2017 period, the opposition leader, Mrs. Portia Simpson-Miller, made her contribution to the budget today. Right now we have been joined by financial analyst Mr. Dennis Chung as we take a look at the budget and the PSOJ's response to the budget so far. Welcome to In Depth, Mr. Chung.
Thank you.
Now, what are your thoughts on what you've heard being presented by first the Minister of Finance, Mr. Audley Shaw, and the opposition spokesperson on finance, Dr. Peter Phillips?
Well, the PSOJ actually issued a response to the presentation in terms of the tax package. What we feel is that the move to move towards indirect taxation is definitely something that we have been encouraging. Our PSWG report of 2012 actually spoke to that. We have two concerns, however, with the tax package. And the two were, number one, the matter of the additional taxation on people over $6 million. The last time such a system was tried, it didn't work, and it actually resulted in less money coming in. Because, you know, when people are faced with that, then you have legal tax avoidance measures that people use in terms of income shifting and that sort of thing. And we also felt that it was a significant burden on people over $6 million, because these are the same people who mostly buy gasoline, and they'll be facing a $7 tax. And also, these are the same people who mostly travel, and they're also going to have the departure tax. So we thought it was a significant burden, especially since these are the persons who are primarily managers in the organization. It's really not a very good incentive for productivity. The second one was to do with the gas tax, which the real issue that we have with it is that, you know, when we did the analysis in terms of the premium that we're getting from Trinidad, we're paying for Trinidad oil, we estimated that over the past 10 years to 2014, we paid about $700 million US more than we would have paid if there was no CET on fuel. And given the revelation that has come out about the Trinidad and subsidy, also what it is showing is that Jamaica, in fact, has been paying for the subsidy, and we thought that you know, it's unfair to ask Jamaicans to pay that additional amount when what we could be doing is either imposing a CET on imports from Trinidad in terms of the fuel only, or removing the CET from other imports outside of CARICOM, you know, so that Jamaicans wouldn't have to suffer that, because it is going to have an inflationary impact. You know, and therefore it was a little unfair. And those were the real two issues that we had. We think, however, and we do applaud the efforts of the government to move towards indirect taxation, because we think that consumption tax is the best way to deal with compliance. It's more efficient also. People cannot escape it, and you know, it actually reduces the amount of bureaucracy in terms of tax collection. So those were the two things we had on the tax package. We don't know where the government is going to go with it, but those are our two concerns. On the matter of the presentation by the opposition spokesman on finance, I don't think, and this is not a position that was discussed internally, but I don't think that there's a need for any additional taxes this year. Definitely. You know, I think that, you know, we've seen significant growth in economic activity over the past 6 months or so. So we think that we can actually see some improvements in taxation and collections just normally, I mean, without the tax package. And then the additional tax that's going to come on should cover the expenditure that's there. In terms of if we are going to, the point that was made that if we implement the additional 500,000 tax next year, tax threshold next year. If the economy does not grow, I would say 3% or upwards. Particularly since the NHT contribution of 11 billion is supposed to come to an end next year.
All right, let me. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Chung. We've been joined by political analyst, Mr. Richard Crawford. We'd like to get him into the conversation. Good night, Mr. Crawford.
Good night, madam.
Okay, now, first of all, what are your thoughts on the opposition leader's presentation today?
Interesting. I think as the election is over and the days are passing, we seem as if we're probably coming back to a greater level of normalcy. I thought, in a sense, that the opposition leader's presentation today, it was subdued but pointed and basically good because it asked a number of questions which are of fairly important concern. And actually, I thought I heard greater clarity coming out of the PNP in this presentation than I have for a long time, and even certainly before the election. I think what struck was the fact that the leader of the opposition indicated, made the recommendations and said to the government, these are the things that we would like to see: partnership for development, protection of the most disadvantaged in the economy, look at the issue of the education, the removal of the cess or the auxiliary fees may pose some degree of danger. The reduction of $500 million less to be spent on the security forces for equipment and issues of importance to their operation. I would have to agree that that is pretty bad at this point in time. But having sort of made those observations and regarded them as shortcomings, the opposition said, listen, if you pursue these things in the interest of the people, you will have our full support and cooperation. And that's what we really want to see. I thought that was a pretty reasonable way to approach the issue. Some people may have said, well, was the Prime Minister merely just reciting her achievements of the past? There was, of course, that in it. But I think, by and large, there was some degree of common sense and balance and not overreaching. And certainly, I didn't pick up any of the usual, quarrelsome tribal arguments at all.
Do you think that Jamaicans should be comfortable with the fact that solutions to the problems outlined with the budget were not presented today?
By the opposition
leader, yes.
What are the problems? The significant problem, which is still being discussed by all and sundry, is the tax package and the economic situation in the country. I think the opposition leader said that her spokesperson, Dr. Phillips, I think, went into great detail into why it won't work and why it can't work. There was some degree of criticisms about his presentation. But maybe that is one of the most significant things. And how are you going to accomplish, cutting that shortfall? The solutions, I believe, there, I think the opposition leader raised them. I don't think she put certainly a milepost and a whole lot of signs as to how that was going to go. I think what happened in the presentation, I'm sort of seeing it as a package. I think Dr. Phillips hammered home on the difficulties of the fiscal shortfall and the need to stay the course and to make sure that when all the money that is required for keeping the country in good stead with the IMF agreement And I think that the opposition leader spoke to the other issues to, as it were, try to impress upon the government that these are also critical and important.
Okay, now Mr. Chung, earlier we discussed the issue, the stance of the PSOJ on the issue, and they have a problem basically with the introduction of the gas tax and increasing the income tax of persons who make more than $6 million for the year. Has the PSOJ coined as an alternative to these proposals in the budget?
Yeah, well, we've discussed it. I mean, the challenge we have with the $6 million additional is that we don't think it's going to work. We don't think it's going to carry any additional amount. And, you know, I think it's going to approximately $1 billion that's being raised. It's not worth it to create that disincentive for people for that. Particularly since, one of the things that we pointed out is that there are a lot of companies that are registered that are not on the tax roll, right? Whether you're making money or you're not making money, we don't know. Also, there are about of a working population of 1.15 million. That's not the labor force working. It's about 326,000 people that are registered for PAI. That's a little over 20% of the persons, right? So we think that there is a compliance issue out there, right? The way to address the compliance issue is to shift a lot more of your taxes to consumption taxes. Gasoline is a consumption tax, I agree. However, there are some things that are going to have a greater inflationary impact, and that is one of them, we think. The primary issue we have with the gas tax situation is that, and it's not just with the government or the present day, but the fact of the matter is that governments in Jamaica have sat down and allowed for us as a country to subsidize the Trinidadian economy, and yet still what we're doing is putting more tax on the Jamaican people. That really is the issue that we have with it, and we're saying that what we need to do now is recoup some of that, but not from the Jamaican people. So Jamaican people need to get a break from that. So we're saying that put the CET on the fuel imports from Trinidad. That way the tax will come to the Jamaican government, right? They will get it and it won't affect the people of Jamaica. So we think that those are primarily the alternatives. Tax compliance definitely is something that needs to be worked on. But from the point of view of the $6 million, as I said, we just don't think you're going to achieve it because we tried it before. It didn't happen. It didn't work. And we're coming from a system in the 1980s of those differential tax rates. And the reason why we simplified it is because, in a culture like Jamaica, you actually collect less because of the cultural situation. So you can't just look at a straight compared to another country and say, boy, it's going to work because it works in a different country. Economics is about behavior more than anything else. And the way that we behave in Jamaica is totally different from a tax culture point of view.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Crawford and Chung.
Okay. All right.
Dennis.
We were just joined on In-Depth by political analyst Richard Crawford and financial analyst Dennis Chung and CEO of the PSOJ, taking a look at the contribution to the national 2016-2017 budget by leader of the opposition, Portia Simpson Miller.